This video will include images of human remains. This is for educational purposes. If you're interested in this content without the inclusion of these images, I am considering a podcast option whenever I can get that sorted. It's time for mummies. Great! What's a mummy? In order to answer this question, I wrote an entire textbook about mummy studies because I lack self-control and no harm ever came from reading a book. For the purposes of this video, I'll be focusing on human mummies. A mummy or mummified human is a corpse with enough soft tissue preserved to resemble a once living person. At least that's the definition provided in the textbook, The Scientific Study of Mummies. The creation of a mummy, whether natural or artificial, depends on the process of mummification, which we can define as the transformation of a once living body or tissue into a state of arrested decay. Essentially, something intervenes after a person has died and helps the body's tissues resist decay for a prolonged period of time. Putrefaction and decomposition, the process of decay, is delayed, slowed down, or doesn't happen at all. This can be temporary to preserve the body long enough for mortuary rituals to be completed, or a mummified body can remain preserved for thousands of years. There are several things that can cause the process of mummification to occur, and when we study mummies, we can group them into two broad categories: spontaneously or naturally preserved human remains, and anthropogenically or artificially preserved human remains. Naturally mummified humans would include Utsi the Iceman, or the individuals in the Vat's mummy collection. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs are probably the most famous example of artificially mummified individuals, but the earliest evidence we have of anyone intentionally mummifying their dead comes from the Chinchorro people. The Chinchorro people lived in southern Peru and northern Chile. These mummies date back at least as far as 5000 BCE. Hello, I am just gonna jump in here and quickly say that what I just said about the oldest mummies in the world was accurate at the time of me writing that script and recording that video, which I now recorded long enough ago that I have no memory of recording it. But in the time between me recording it and me actually having the time to sit down and edit it, a paper has come out and it's been all over my news about scientists find earliest evidence of mummification in Asia. So what they're looking at is, from what I've glanced at so far, smoke-dried mummies from Southeast Asia, estimated to be 12,000 years old, which is absolutely fascinating. I would love to do more research on this, maybe a video on it in the future. I just need to make the time for that first. We can further refine the terms and categories we use when describing mummies, make them more specific. Anthropogenic or artificial mummification means that the body was intentionally preserved in order to keep its human body shape. Spontaneous or natural mummification is the result of the environment around the body, like when bodies are frozen or dry out in deserts and thus don't decompose. In spontaneous enhanced mummification, the body isn't treated or manipulated, but it is buried in a certain place that preserves the soft tissue. Intermediate mummification means a body is preserved temporarily, long enough for whatever ceremonies or rituals need to take place before burial. We can also describe a mummy as having an indeterminate type of mummification, which is a fancy way of saying we can't figure out how it was mummified. All of these different types of mummification can be achieved through different ways, different mechanisms. The most common form of both natural and artificial mummification is desiccation, the dehydration or drying out of bodily tissues. Climates like arid deserts in Egypt, China, or Peru, or microclimates like those created in the crypts in Europe, have conditions that remove water and moisture from the surface of the skin and dry out the body, preventing it from decaying. The combination of desert climate, low humidity, and dry soil spontaneously desiccated the mummies of Guanajuato and Mexico. I'm so sorry for that pronunciation. Alkaline or hydrophilic soil conditions that pull fluids out of and away from the body can also create a natural mummy. An alkaline environment in which a body comes into contact with lime, the result of mixing water and ash, can produce a soapy, waxy substance called adipocere. This process, saponification, is how soap mummies are made. Freezing is also a good way to mummify a body, because it stops the growth of the bacteria involved in the decomposition process. This is how we got mummified individuals like Utsi or the Inca Ice Maiden. Peat bogs are another type of environment that can preserve soft tissue, creating bog bodies. Peat bogs are areas where an accumulation of partly decomposed plants in water and bog bodies have been found in a bunch of locations in Northern Europe. These are only a handful of ways to make a mummy, and I'm hoping to do deeper dives into different mummification practices and specific mummified individuals, because I really do think they deserve their own videos. However, I'd like to briefly mention an alleged form of mummification for which we don't actually have solid evidence that it ever truly worked, or at least none I found so far. Desiccation by osmosis, or honey mummies. You'll also see this referred to as the mummified man. This topic received maybe one paragraph's worth of attention in the scientific study of mummies, but people allegedly mummified in honey include the Greek philosopher Democritus, the 16th century Earls of Southampton, and Alexander the Great. The concept behind this, at least as far as I can understand it, involves water moving out of the body and into the honey. Someone actually did experiments that showed how honey can enhance the preservation of soft tissue, but only small fragments of soft tissue. When the honey couldn't access larger fragments immediately, bacteria would do its thing and the tissue would putrefy. A proper test of this concept would need to involve submerging an entire carcass in honey and observing what happens. The whole idea of honey mummies is so strange to me that I honestly feel like I have no idea how to research it. Please let me know in the comments which mummified individuals or mummification practices you'd like to learn about, and that way we can discuss how we study mummies and what they teach us about the past. I have made a video about the Vats mummy collection, a group of crypt mummies from Hungary. They've been very involved in some of the background research for my PhD dissertation. If you want to read some books about mummies, I have a video about that too. I hope you have a lovely day, and thank you for watching.